Golf is very sequential. How do you stand? How do you start the backswing, continue the backswing, start the downswing, continue the downswing? And each element requires that the previous ones be done well enough not to interrupt it. So if you've prepared well and swung back correctly, then the downswing is where all of it comes together. That's the bit that hits the ball. And we have some dynamics at work here which are important to control. A golf club is a long, heavy lever, and we pull it at arm's length from right to left. Now, when we pull on it, it pulls back on us. And if it wins the battle, the club will drop down, suck in close to you, risk hitting the ground before the ball, and rotate out to the right. And that rotation to the right will be magnified by the collision with the ball, which is obviously eccentrically placed vis-a-vis the axis of the shaft. And so you'll tend to hit weak, high, and to the right. And then we do all sorts of elaborate things to try to flick the club with our wrists desperately at the end of the downswing to try to solve it. Good golfers don't do that. What they understand, again talking dynamically, is that the downswing needs to be applied to the club in such a way that the club doesn't win the battle. The best thing is that we end up in a draw where the impact with the ball and the ground doesn't deflect the club and the ball bounces off the club effectively and toward the target with what I prefer, which is a climbing draw. Well, so that's why I recommend that you bias. A very great champion, Ben Hogan, who was by many people thought to be the finest striker of a golf ball in the history of the game, advocated in his wonderful golf book that the elbows be looking at the hips. Now, it hasn't stood the test of time. If you watch modern champions, they don't do it that way. They actually have the left arm turned the way I recommend, which is with the elbow looking out. That raises the shoulder, moves it toward the ball slightly, tilts your body to the right, and puts your arm in a position where it can't easily be dragged farther that way by the drag of the club. And you're in a position where you're more able to apply the club correctly. And what might that be? All through the downswing, the feeling should be that the club face is turning like a gate. And the next part of that equation is to understand that even though we want the ball to rise, the logical approach actually keeps me employed. Smart people do this because it's so logical. They look at the task of hitting a ball with a tilted surface, the club face, up a ramp toward the target, and think that that's what they should apply. Well, that falls foul of that same dynamic where the club wants to rotate in here close to you, drop down, hit fat, because you don't have the competing dynamics working in your favor. So even though it's logical to drive the ball up a ramp, to do that, you actually have to rotate the club to the right and your arms, the very thing that the dynamics are trying to do to you in the first place. So we want the club turning like a gate and not going up a ramp, but down a spiral. Think of me as the central column of a spiral staircase. We're going to, in the first half of the downswing, pull the arms and club down the handrail of that spiral staircase. And about halfway down, there's a release point where we let the club go past us. And the shaft of the club cleans a large part of this windshield right here. And then we follow through and admire the shot, maybe with one eyebrow raised for the cameras.